Hey everybody, Off the Mic Sports Network here, another edition of Off the Top Rope. So, um, I mean, here I am recording this on Tuesday. I can't believe that I'm, doing another AEW Double or Nothing pay-per-view rehash thing because we need to have another discussion. Tony Khan seriously needs to rethink how he does his pay-per-views. Whether you move it up an hour, whether you take out a couple of matches, the last several pay-per-views have gone on way too long. Way too long. And this is coming from a guy who is a West Coast guy. I can't imagine watching an AEW pay-per-view on the East Coast. Because let me just paint a picture. I lived in Washington, D.C. during WrestleMania 35. You guys remember that was the one where Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Ronda Rousey main evented that show, and that match went past midnight Eastern on a Sunday, and the transit situation was a fucking disaster from what I heard. But staying up past midnight, for most people who work the next day, that's just a recipe for disaster. It's just like AEW's had this really compulsive need they previously had done it where they would just jam so much as they could into 4 hours because they would have the 0 hour show that would be like an hour and a half, and then they go from 8 to midnight in a 4 hour window. And I remember it was Sting's last match. He was cutting a promo and they got cut off the air. So they the last couple of pay-per-views, and they've done this sporadically where they've given themselves an extra hour and they've gone into the 4.5 hour range. So if you add that together with, the 0 hour or the buy-in, you're looking at like 6 hours of wrestling, man. Like that's a long fucking night. That is a long fucking night. And if you look at, and I understand Double or Nothing was a really solid show. Really, to me, it was carried by the three main matches. It was the men's and women's Owen Hart Cup finals, and then obviously Anarchy in the Arena. There was some other good stuff on this show, but there was no story to a lot of it, or minimal story to get anybody to care into these. And like I said, you had in between Anarchy in the Arena and the main event, you had a random 6-man tag that was literally made like 2 days prior. It's just like Tony Khan needs to cool it a little bit, especially with all these pay-per-views that he does. He does what 9 of them a year now? Like they used to do 4 of them. And it's like, yeah, I understand wanting to give your fans more bang for your buck, but at the same time, when you have matches that are going to deliver, and some fans were getting mad at people for daring to call this out and just be like, hey man, I'd rather get more bang for my buck at $50. It's like, yeah, I get the whole element of like, hey, Tony Khan wants to make his fans happy, wants to make the sickos happy, but realistically, Ricochet and Briscoe, as good as that was, that could have easily been a dynamite match in a stretcher match. You could have had the Fletcher six person tag. You could have had that. You could have that somewhere else. You could have had that not be on the show. Yeah, Okada had one of his better matches in AEW against Speedball Mike Bailey, but why did that need to be on the pay-per-view? Like I just there was at least 2 to 3 matches, maybe 4, that could have been off this show. You could have easily gotten away with 6 to 7 matches, and like especially when multiple of them, and including the main event, went well past 30 minutes. So you had at least 2 that went past 30 minutes, a couple others that went about 20. And when you stack those together, that's just way too much. It's way too much. Add on the fact that, AEW does not give a ton of ad breaks. And, on some level, I do appreciate, hey, that they're willing to get into the action. But you got to give some people a chance to, catch their breath, get a beer, reevaluate things and, bring themselves down a little bit to, get themselves set up for the next match. But, man, this has been a struggle the last couple times. And, at least, with this show, there was, at least from a pacing perspective, they did a decent enough job where they broke off the main matches, enough where Anarchy in the Arena was towards the end. They had a match in between, but like I said, that match really didn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. And then, obviously you had the opener and then the closing, you opened and closed with the Owen Hart Cup tournament, but they've got to make these things shorter, man. Like, and you can't give me the argument of like, oh yeah, we're charging $50. We want to make sure our fans get more bang. Why don't you invest more in telling stories and compelling stories? And then for those 6 to 7 matches that make the pay-per-view card, they feel so entrenched, so intriguing. And if you go 3.5 hours, hell, even do what WWE does and start at 7 Eastern and go 3.5 hours, 3.5. And if you go 4 hours, you're off the air at 11 Eastern. Maybe moving this up a little bit is a way to explore this too. But I also think that these shows are way too long at 4.5 hours. That's just way too long for a main card of a show, especially if you're going to do it on a Sunday. Um, All In will be a little bit different because they're starting it earlier. It's going to be on a Saturday. I think they said 3 Eastern is when they're going to kick that thing off, which is an interesting start time. Everybody's going to be mad about what the fuck happened. With Great American Bash now and Saturday Night's main event going on at the same day as All In. So, listen, I don't know what to tell you guys, but it's like this is the second time this year that I've just been like, man, this pay-per-view format needs to change. It really does. Because especially when you're doing East Coast shows, they've been able to get away with it because a couple of the early pay-per-views this year have been on the West Coast. But man, that Dynasty pay-per-view in Philadelphia, taking that past midnight Eastern when people have to get up for work the next day, that was asking for it. Okay, I was asking for it. So, I mean, again, it shouldn't be that hard. I get that Tony himself is a mark and he wants to just please his fans. I think you would make things infinitely better if you didn't just jam and force a bunch of matches that admittedly will be bangers, but like at least 2 to 3 of these matches could have made it on a free television and nobody would have had a problem with it. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.